Hello, and welcome to 10 for 10, 10th News, your weekly dose of 10th Amendment news in 10 minutes or so from the 10th Amendment Center. Today is February 4th, 2013. My name is Michael Bolden, and thank you for tuning in. This week's episode is made possible in part by the 10th Amendment Center membership program. Proudly wear the 10ther label with pride and become a card-carrying member of us here at the TAC. Get all the details and join us online at members.10thamendmentcenter.com. Again, that's members.10thamendmentcenter.com. And now the news. There are now 13 states considering legislation to nullify new federal kidnapping powers, what Washington, D.C. refers to as indefinite detention, under the National Defense Authorization Act, or the NDAA. 3 of the latest states to consider legislation include Michigan, Kansas, and New Hampshire. In the Live Free or Die state, the bill is House Bill 399, that's HB 399, the Liberty Preservation Act. Introduced by State Representative Dan Itse, he is in many ways the intellectual godfather of the modern state nullification movement. HB 399 states the following, quote, "The legislature finds that the enactment into law by the United States Congress of Sections 1021 and 1022 of the National Defense Authorization Act for Fiscal Year 2012, that's Public Law Number 112-81, is inimical to the liberty, security, and well-being of the people of New Hampshire, and was adopted by the United States Congress in violation of the limits of the federal power in the United States Constitution. If passed, the state of New Hampshire shall not, quote, provide material support or participate in any way with the implementation of Sections 1021 and 1022 of the National Defense Authorization Act for Fiscal Year 2012 within the boundaries of the state. The Department of Safety is hereby directed to report to the governor and the legislature any attempt by agencies or agents of the United States government to secure the implementation of these sections, again, that's 1021, 1022 of the NDAA for fiscal year 2012 through the operations of that or any other state department. The bill also provides for penalties for participating in indefinite detention. It continues, quote, "Any public officer, employee, or agent of the state of New Hampshire, or any employee of a corporation providing services to the state of New Hampshire that enforces or attempts to enforce an act, order, law, statute, rule, or regulation of the government of the United States in violation of this act shall be guilty of a Class A misdemeanor," end quote. HB 399 has been sent to the State Federal Relations and Veterans Affairs Committee. Last year, Virginia became the first state to pass such a law, and with so many more considering similar legislation this year, it's expected to be only a matter of time before more nullification measures are passed in regards to NDAA kidnapping powers. To track the status of this bill in New Hampshire and similar legislation in states around the country, visit tracking.10thamendmentcenter.com/NDAA. Again, that's tracking.10thamendmentcenter.com/NDAA. And to get model legislation to nullify these indefinite detention powers ready for introduction in your state, county, city, or town, visit 10thamendmentcenter.com/NDAA. In our next story, drones. Last year, the federal government issued new rules that are expected to release an onslaught of up to 30,000 drones over American skies in the coming years. The Department of Homeland Security is already giving unconstitutional financial handouts that they call grants to some local governments to purchase these drones, which are primarily used to spy or monitor people without the use of a warrant. But now there are a growing number of states considering legislation to nullify drone surveillance, and in fact to nullify the use of drones almost completely. The latest include the states of North Dakota and Oklahoma. In North Dakota, House Bill 1373 states, quote, "A law enforcement agency may not use an unmanned aircraft for surveillance of a person within the state or for the surveillance of personal or business property located within the borders of the state to gather evidence or other information pertaining to criminal conduct." End quote. The bill goes further to specifically ban the use of armed drones, saying, quote, "A state agency may not authorize the use, including a grant to permit to use, of an unmanned aircraft while armed with any lethal or non-lethal weapons, including firearms, pepper spray, beanbag guns, mace, and sound-based weapons." End quote. As in other states, the North Dakota bill bans drone use by state agency. But at this stage in the drone game, though, the feds are intent on getting states to operate the drones for them. In fact, DHS issues large grants up to $300,000 and more to local governments so that these local agencies can purchase the drones. The goal? They want to fund a network of drones around the country and put the operational burden on the states. Once a web has been created over the full country, DHS would then step in with requests for information sharing. Bills like North Dakota's HB 1373 put a huge dent in this kind of long-term strategy from the feds. Without the states and local communities operating the drones today, it's going to be nearly impossible for DHS plans as they are to take off. Get model legislation and track the status of similar bills around the country at tracking.10thamendmentcenter.com/drones. Again, that's tracking.10thamendmentcenter.com/drones. And in closing today, positive steps forward in protecting the right to keep and bear arms. There are currently 15 states with legislation introduced to nullify federal gun laws, rules, orders, or regulations. While it will be some time before all the votes are in on a state level, there are some positive early results already. In Arizona, Senate Bill 1112, that's SB 1112, would bar enforcement of federal laws affecting semi-automatic firearms or high-capacity magazines in effect on or after January 1st, 2013. It also makes any federal official trying to enforce such laws guilty of a Class 6 felony and allows the state attorney general in Arizona to defend anyone prosecuted for violating federal gun laws if the gun was made in Arizona, among many other provisions. Last Wednesday, SB 1112 in Arizona was passed out of the Senate Public Safety Committee by a vote of 4-2. It now goes on to debate and vote in the Senate Rules Committee, where inside sources say that strong support from the grassroots will encourage its passage. From there, it would go on to a full Senate floor debate and vote. And in Wyoming, State Representative Kendall Croker's Firearms Protection Act, that's House Bill 104, was passed by the full House last week. The vote was 46-13. HB 104, quote, is an act relating to firearms, providing that any federal law which attempts to ban a semi-automatic firearm or to limit the size of a magazine of a firearm or other limitation in this state shall be unenforceable in Wyoming. Beyond such statements, House Bill 104 in Wyoming also backs things up with some teeth by providing for criminal charges for federal agents who attempt to violate the proposed state law. It continues, any official, agent, or employee of the United States government who enforces or attempts to enforce any act, order, law, statute, rule, or regulation of the United States government upon a personal firearm, a firearm accessory, or ammunition that is owned or manufactured commercially or privately in Wyoming and that remains exclusively within the borders of Wyoming shall be guilty of a felony, and upon conviction shall be subject to imprisonment for not less than 1 year and 1 day, or more than 5 years, a fine of not more than $5,000, or both." End quote. House Bill 104 now goes on to the Wyoming State Senate, where it will be debated and hopefully get a full vote in the near future. Track the status of similar legislation in states around the country and get model legislation for introduction in your area as well, state or local, over at tracking.10thamendmentcenter.com/Second Amendment. Again, that's tracking.10thamendmentcenter.com/Second Amendment. And that covers our report here today on 10 for 10, 10th News. Get 10 minutes or so of 10th Amendment news every single week from us here at the 10th Amendment Center. Watch 10th News every week on youtube.com/10th Amendment Center. View archive shows at news.10thamendmentcenter.com. My name is Michael Bolden. Thanks again for tuning in.